had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best-fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
When Central Michigan football head coach Matt Drinkall talks about identity, he's clear about one thing. This isn't a highlight version of toughness. It isn't noise. It isn't slogans. It's a daily inspection. Coach Drinkall describes physicality as something you train mentally before it ever shows up physically, a systematic, disciplined way of thinking that demands consistency, strain, and a willingness to do what others won't. Not sometimes, all the time. And that's where alignment actually gets tested, because identity doesn't live in a speech. It lives in position rooms. It lives in meetings. It lives in how coaches teach, correct, demand, and model the standards every day. This episode is about what that looks like in practice. Here's Matt Drinkall on what physicality actually means and why it has to be trained, inspected, and lived every single day.
It's one of those things that you have to look under the hood every single day. And it's really where, again, my time at West Point around Coach Munkin and specifically around Coach Vitti and Coach Hughes, the strength coach, but it's just where a lot of people like a highlight version of physicality, like I said, learning it from Vitti in meetings and watching him coach every day it's not highlight anything, and it's not anything you get prepared for. It's really got to become embraced of who you are and how you see it and how you go about it all of the time. And it's the things that I learned the most is the craziest, most psycho guys are the really quiet ones, the really nice ones and the really quiet ones. It's not, go listen to the craziest, loudest music. And there is a methodology and a systematic approach to being physical and demanding that out of yourself mentally all of the time. And that's where I think it really starts. I don't know a way for you to not possess that mentally and then it show up physically. But I know for a fact that if you train that mental skill, it is almost impossible for it to not show up. So again, finding those guys that are willing participants, and we talked about here, we showed we studied a lot of the analytics of the demographic in this conference, and what teams that when you win this conference, you're doing these things successfully in and out. And right now in the era of college football where it is a bunch of transfer out, it's all about stats. What can I get for me? If you want to have success, that's how everyone's doing it. If you want to have success, you have to be willing to do things other kids are unwilling to do. So that, one of the things I take a lot of pride in is we won 7 games this year and had a very good season. We only had 5 kids that were all conference. We could have sat and thrown the ball to one receiver or hand the ball to one back or whatever, but for all of our kids to play and play so much and play as a team, that is a testament to how things culturally are going. But yeah, we have to be willing to do the things other people are unwilling to do, and to be mentally tough all the time and to be a violent son of a bitch all of the time. And to practice against that, to be like that all the time is very, very challenging. So you got to inspect that and talk about it all the time.
To see whether identity is real, you don't look at one side of the ball, you look across the building. That's why this episode moves through 3 rooms: the offensive line, tight ends and fullbacks, and the defense, each responsible for bringing the same identity to life in different ways. The offensive line is where physicality becomes unavoidable. Offensive line coach Hayden Mace walks through how discipline, simplicity, and confidence allow players to play fast and violent without losing control. This isn't chaos, it's trained aggression. What Coach Drinkall describes as a mental skill, Coach Mace turns into daily behavior through standard structure and relentless finishing. So, Coach, we've talked with Coach Drinkall, and I think one of the biggest things that came out in that conversation as far as identity is physicality. And so being the offensive line coach, that's one of the main things that's going to fall on you. You're kind of like a pace setter with that, right? Like what you do and how you guys set the tone with physicality is certainly going to echo throughout the team. So with that in mind, what's the starting point? What does it look like on day one when you sit down? You sat down here for the first time a year ago to set the tone for, guys, this is how we do things.
First of all, being able to be the offensive line coach for Coach Drinkall is a tremendous opportunity with his background and what he's accomplished in his career. And being the offensive line coach here is a tremendous opportunity. And how we do it here is being able to do it from the first time we meet the kids, either through recruiting or meeting them here in the building, and then it's through installs and every day in training and every day in practice and game prep. And it's how we talk to the kids. It's how we communicate, from installs to game prep against specific players to how Coach Riedel and the staff trains with them down there. And I think the biggest kind of frameworks that we use are discipline, being a really disciplined program, knowing our responsibilities, and then being able to play fast. And one of the greatest joys of being an offensive lineman is moving a man against his will. And so we do that through building confidence in our guys, keeping things simple so that they can play fast, training them really hard, creating that confidence so that they can show up in the fight, whether it's FCS team, MAC team, or Pitt or Michigan like we played this year, having the confidence in how we've trained them and prepared them so that they can step out there and swing on whoever it is. And once they have that confidence, just being able to go out there and play free, fast, and physical.
Matt talked about a mindset of violence at the Cool Clinic, which I'm sure, you're a Cool Clinic attendee.
Yeah.
And that was part of his presentation last year after he had taken over as the head coach here at Central Michigan. And it's a behavior, is what he says. It's not a slogan. It's not rah-rah stuff. It's stuff that you can train. So what are the behaviors that, guys, this is what's going to make you physical? What are the standards? What are the things that you're training into these guys so that when we turn on the film, we see physical?
Yeah, for sure. So I was introduced to this working with Coach Drinkall. He has 3 C's of blocking, which are the cover phase, the cripple phase, and the control phase. And the cover phase is getting to the proper fit with the proper leverage. The cripple phase is the strike that we use on the defender, and the control portion of the block is the finish, essentially. How do we finish in compared to where the ball carrier is and through the echo of the whistle? Being introduced to that and that way of thinking is, a simple framework for our guys to be able to think. They don't have to think about a million things. They have to think about their fit. They have to think about their feet, how they're fitting on a defender, and then how they're finishing on them. And, for us, it is, talking about violence. It's training in that manner. And then I think the biggest thing is just cutting the guys loose and teaching them to strain through the block. And so we do a lot of work in coming out of our stances and being violent and using our hands and striking people. But really that control phase and the relentlessness to be able to go out there and finish is, what I think, the biggest difference between a good player and a great player is looking to finish. And, whether we're pulling or blocking on zone, being able to give that extra inch the ball carrier needs. It's never enough in pass protection or run blocking to be satisfied with what we're doing, because the back might need an extra inch. The quarterback might need that extra foot to step up in the pocket, and having that relentless attitude to be able to finish what we're doing.
I heard Matt say in that same presentation that overcoaching the technique, getting them to think about too much technique, can take some of that physicality off of it. How do you find that sweet spot? Because you do need a technical guy, but yet at the same time, you want him to play fast, you want him to play physical.
Working with Coach Drinkall has been awesome for that for me, because throughout my career, I've been highly focused on the technique and the finish of things. And he has helped me be able to simplify some things and be able to just cut it loose for the guys. So that's been tremendous for me in my career. But yeah, just being able to present, here's what we were trying to accomplish on this play. Here's the base technique. And then giving the guys the freedom to play fast, physical, and relentless to get the job done. It's not a million coaching points, simplifying it down to the cover, the cripple, the control of the block, and letting them go out there and play fast and physical.
In looking then how this attaches to scheme, this attaches to game planning. We sat down with Coach Chapin, and we tell he wants to empower you guys, obviously, to own your piece of it too. So how does that all work together, that game plan and what you're trying to accomplish there that you're also accomplishing that with the things that we just talked about, that physicality that you're trying to bring out as an identity.
Yeah, for sure. I think, it starts off with how can we put the offensive line in a position to be successful in this game? A lot of people view that through the lens of the quarterback, through the offensive line. We definitely do both, and it's my job to put the offensive line in a position to be successful. And so based on who we're playing from a personnel and scheme standpoint, coming up with ideas to present to Coach Chapin. And if he agrees with that, we run with it. And if he sees things a little bit differently, then I come around to the way of his thinking. But allowing those guys based on what a team presents against us and what we're capable of doing, what is the best way that we can get our guys in position to play fast and relentless, not asking them to do something that is going to be out of character for those guys, or something completely brand new scheme-wise for a week, something that they know that they can cut loose and really get after people on. And having worked with Coach Chapin for a long time now, we have that relationship and that background, having worked together. But I think, being able to present those ideas to the coordinator and work with him through how he sees things, while I'm focused on really seeing it through the lens of those guys up front.
The brand of football part of it is built around the extra gaps you're going to add with tight ends, with fullbacks, maybe multiple tight ends and fullbacks on any particular play. How does that lend itself to your guys being able to play more physical? Some teams spread a field with receivers and spread it out that way to try to clean up the box, and other ones spread those gaps out. So this is more of, at times spread out with those extra gaps. How does that help your guys?
Yeah, for sure. I think, when we got in here and assessing the talent and the group of guys that we had, it was determined pretty early that we were going to be a gap scheme based team. And, we have tight ends in the room. Coach Fulton does a great job with those guys that are capable of leaning on guys on the front side of those gap schemes and getting after people. And so making that decision to lean in that area and being able to trade shift motion to gain leverage, gain numbers advantages, and put our guys in the best position to be successful in terms of working back and, pulling tight and being physical, versus maybe asking a guy to win a one-on-one at the point of attack that maybe he's not equipped to do. We are a young offensive line. Before the start of this season, I think we had 19 starts returning in the room, so very young. And so how can we get the guys up and running as fast as possible and put them in a position to be successful? And with all those tight ends, with running the quarterback and leading with the running back, the gap schemes, the leverage, the angles, the physical nature of the plays that we choose to run, I think marry up real well with how Coach Riedel trains guys in the weight room, how Coach Drinkall talks to the team in team meeting settings, and what we're trying to get done as a program. There's really good alignment.
Just overall looking, 19 starts, that's not a lot of experience coming into it. Yet you guys are able to have a winning season, 7-5, going to a bowl game, all important things, especially in a year one. What was the key to that, to taking a team very green and being able to get them to a level where we're winning ball games in year one?
Yeah. The number one thing is the plan that Coach Drinkall had for the season of how are we going to be successful as a new staff that hasn't really worked together, players that we don't haven't worked together with, and his plan was what led us to where we're at now. And that plan was pretty simple of, we're going to play physical brand of football. We're going to hold on to the ball on offense. We're going to move the chains with the run game, protect the defense, and allow them to play their brand of football. And it wasn't always sexy or perfect on offense, but I think we accomplished those things. Finished the season with good turnover margin, performed well in DSSR metrics across the board. I think hit a lot of those goals, and still a lot of room for growth, but ultimately Coach Drinkall's vision and plan to be able to go out and execute those things and put us in position and give us the guidance that we needed to go then as good football coaches to be able to chase down his vision and get that accomplished for him.
I think if there's a room in the building of players who are maybe the most observant about what's going on, it is the offensive line. They kind of have the pulse of everything, yet they're a little bit quieter at times. For them to sit back and say, okay, how does Coach Mace work with not just the rest of our side of the ball, but the entire staff? What do they see you as modeling as far as collaboration?
I think ultimately my goal as a coach is kind of twofold. It's yes, to help them become the best players that they can be. But ultimately, Coach Drinkall brought this staff here to help build the best men that we can build. We just announced it at team meeting today, hit the highest GPA the team has ever had before. So moving in a positive direction in academic field. We're doing more in the community than has been done here before, helping these men grow, in different areas of their lives. And being able to do that with my guys in my room is something that's special to me. And I mean, another really cool thing about Coach Drinkall's program here is family is really important, whether it's the time that we get to spend with them or the time that they get to spend with us here at the facility. The families coming through the building, the kids running around. It is a family environment here that is truly awesome to be a part of. And then just that extra time, the energy that we have as coaches that we earn through those opportunities allows us to maybe do some stuff that other coaching staffs don't do, and being able to branch off and work with the tight ends or have some fun with the defensive line during practice, and players seeing their coaches having fun with one another, with their players, having that energy, I think has led to our success too from a culture standpoint.
For you, how is that level of fun? You mentioned that word, and we've heard it with other coaches. How's it different here?
Yeah, it's very difficult being an offensive line coach. I think even the best guys in the country with, the biggest budgets and the best rooms are always hunting for more, never satisfied with their performance, because you're coaching 5 guys and it's never perfect. And it's that constant pursuit of perfection. And so working with Coach Chapin and Coach Drinkall and, myself, trying to find the joy in what we're accomplishing, especially with a young group, a new team in our first year, has been a challenge for me personally, but something that I've really started to find joy in. And seeing these guys, these young men grow and develop as people and players, and then also see the success come on the field, that has been a great joy as well. But yeah, I attribute it to the culture that Coach Drinkall has instilled here, the additional time that we get to spend with our players and our families, and focusing on the things that can really drive success within an organization.
Derek, Fulton's room lives in the gray area of football, tight ends and fullbacks, doing the dirty work that rarely shows up on stat sheets. Here, identity shows up as buy-in. Physicality becomes leadership. Violence becomes service to the team. And alignment shows itself in how willing players are to embrace roles that demand effort without applause. All right, when we sat down with Coach Drinkall, he talked about identity. And I mentioned one of the first things I saw kind of, after he did it all, his press conference and he was getting into recruiting, he says, I'm looking for fullbacks, right? Mm-hmm. You're coaching that group, the tight ends and fullbacks. It's not usually what you hear coaches go out there looking for right away, but he put that announcement out to the world that I want these kind of guys. I want physical guys in our offense. So for you to be a part of that, how excited were you to hear something like that?
Yeah, I was. I think it's you just said it. It's really on brand with who we want to be. When Coach Drinkall put that original tweet out there when he got the job, it wasn't just trying to get a certain perception about us. He really meant it, and I think that's really kind of who we've tried to build this program around, not necessarily the tight end room, but that mindset that those guys typically have, so it's been, it was a fun couple weeks there when you put that tweet out, getting a bunch of fullback highlight tapes sent to me. But yeah, that was really exciting. I think really the biggest thing was just the brand of football that we want to play, that physical, violent brand. So I was definitely excited, to hear that that's kind of the direction we're going to go with our offense.
When you look at fullbacks and tight ends, I mean, there's all kinds of those guys. They're guys who have those 80 numbers, but they're really receivers. I mean, you're asking your guys, like, we're going to put our hands in the dirt. We're going to stick our noses in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get dirty. It's a mentality. It's that mindset that coach wants, not just in your position, but throughout the program. And so you have the opportunity for you guys to kind of lead in that effect, right? Along with the offensive line. Like, hey, we can start, like the physicality can start with us. We can own this as our part of the culture. That's going to make our team better. So what's that approach? What are you telling those guys when you sat down with them for the first time of, this is going to be our standard?
Yeah, we talk about, there's ways to lead in the way that you play. And so we talk about that a lot, specifically in our room with those fullbacks and tight ends. Just, we can kind of change the momentum of a game and really the momentum of our offense within a game just by how physical and how violent we are in the run game. And so I think, you mentioned there's different body types in that room, right? We have a tight end that wears number 8 that splits out a little bit. And, we have a fullback in there with number 41. And so that room itself, I think, It's been fun to see the growth of the guys that you would have typically said would have been, kind of your receiver, tight end body type guys that, all of a sudden they have a little bit shorter fullback in the room who we're asking to block power consistently and block counter. And all of a sudden you start seeing those receiver type body guys like, oh, okay, that's something I want to do more of. And so they kind of feed off each other in that regard. So I think the standard of the room is, I'm very fortunate to have a room of guys that they're very experienced. They've played a bunch of snaps before. They have high standards for themselves, and again, like I said, they kind of feed off one another in that regard. So, we're asked to do a lot in the run game in a variety of different ways and schemes and specific blocks on the perimeter and the box, and those guys take it upon themselves to kind of set the tone with not only like how violent we're going to play, but with how we finish blocks and how well we sustain blocks and all those blocking phases that we have, taking pride in that. And that's something that they do.
Looking at your role within the staff and, co-coordinator, you coach the tight ends, obviously your input on how those guys might fit into a game plan differently is very important. In just the general sense of working together as a staff in a year one, which is new guys coming together, guys who haven't worked before. What are the things you think allowed you to work together and collaborate the best here? How were you set up for success?
Well, I'd say, first of all, what comes to mind with our staff is very low ego, like a very humble group of coaches that we've been, a lot of us have been at small schools, NAIA Division II schools. This is, for some of us, our first opportunity at this level. And so I think just trust in one another and like I said, the low egos that we have on this staff, it's pretty unique in the sense of you have an offensive line-minded head coach, right? And, I had experience coaching the O-line before coming here. And so, there's times at practice where, we have the tight ends and O-line together. So Coach Mace and myself are running the tight ends are running the O-line and tight ends to start practice. And we call them our culture periods. That's where we're building our culture of that room and both rooms, O-line and tight ends. And, Coach Drinkall, obviously he'll pop down there and have some coaching points here and there. And so really that mindset, I think ultimately as a whole coaching staff when we got here was, hey, there's not a job that's too small for any of us. And again, I think our experience and our backgrounds being at those smaller level schools, we all gelled together pretty quickly, and I think that was important. There's no hidden agendas on this staff. There's people that are good people that just want to see our guys be successful and help our players, support our players as much as we can. And so Coach Drinkall, to his credit, a lot of us hadn't worked together before, but he hired a staff of people that were already bought into that vision before we even stepped foot here at Central Michigan to do the job, so hired a lot of like-minded people that are humble people that are ready to work and recruit, retain, develop guys and know that success is going to come from, bringing the right people into this building and then just working hard and doing whatever it takes for our players.
How do you see the collaboration across the ball? You guys on the offensive side working with the defensive coaches so that, there's that alignment, not just, hey, we do it the right way on our side of the ball, but you're working with those guys as well.
Well, I think that comes down to, in my opinion, relationship with the other side of the ball. If you're in this building on a Tuesday at 3:00, like you're going to see offensive and defensive coaches hanging out, talking to each other, collaborating in that regard. And I think when there's trust on both sides of the ball, and again, that alignment as a staff of, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to win games. And I think that ultimately goes back to what you're talking about with our scheme offensively and our identity with fullback tight ends, right? Like that's naturally a pretty unselfish group. So I think with that mindset of, hey, we're willing to do whatever it takes to win. There's games where our defense has played really well and heck, we didn't have to score many points, and there's games where, okay, now we got to, maybe get away from our identity of running the football a bunch and throw it a little bit more. Like I think that unified vision and that alignment from Coach Drinkall and our coordinators ultimately I think is a reason for that easy collaboration that we have and that humility aspect of things.
Defensively, Sean Cronin describes a unit built around effort, leverage, takeaways, and trust. He calls it the pack mentality. Not ego, not over-scheming, not individual stats. This is where Coach Drinkall's words get tested hardest, because defensive physicality has to be disciplined, coordinated, and shared. One player breaking alignment breaks everything. Coach Cronin shows how the same identity survives pressure by being simple, teachable, and owned collectively. Looking at how you guys operate together, what this culture is, what it means, not across just the program, but really starting with you guys. And one of the things Matt talked about was an identity of physicality. So I want to dig into that idea first. And I think I know the answer to the question already because it's right behind me. But for you, what is the identity of this defense? What are the things you guys want to hang your hats on and be known for?
When we go into every meeting, we start with, we call ourselves the pack. Okay. So like a pack is pack animals, they hunt together. Their survival depends on each other. The legs feed the wolf. They strain to survive and they got to work together or they die. And so that's really like, kind of our mantra. And we start every meeting when I come in, I yell effort and they repeat it, leverage, they repeat it, takeaways, they repeat it, and then I do your job and they repeat it. So those are really our big emphasis on defense. If you strain, it makes up for a lot of mistakes. You leverage the football back properly. That's going to help, in run and pass. Takeaways are game changers, and then doing your job is critical. I mean, I think offenses are so good now that like they're going to beat you at times. Like they have good players and they're going to make plays. But where defenses really break down is when they make those plays and then you add to them plays where you didn't leverage something properly, where you're not playing hard, where you don't do your job. And that's when things can get away from you.
I think the important thing too is you're looking at, these are behaviors. These are things that show up on film,
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at just not yourself, but the defensive staff, how they coach this, what's the expectation? What do you want them to be talking about when they turn on the film and they see something that goes along with those four things?
We could get to come to work every day and just work with like really high quality, high character, highly motivated kids. And so they do whatever we ask them to do, like they really respond anytime they're challenged. If we are disappointed with a practice, generally, we just point out the flaws of that practice and what we need to improve the next practice. You come back the next practice, they address everything that as long as you're clear, concise, and direct with them, they address all those things. And so for us, the behaviors really just the ones we emphasize the most are just effort. You know what I mean? Effort and intentional reps. Like a lot of times when you go out there at practice, like you do like drills and like we try to stay away from what people call EDDs, everyday drills. We have everyday emphases. So like for the linebackers, for instance, we're going to work on feet, eyes, and hands every day because that's our weapons, right? So, but if I can do a different drill, not do the exact same drill every single day. Certainly we have drills that we repeat pretty consistently, but you had to kind of break it up for them. And going back to what you're talking about, like what we're looking for at practice are intentional reps, and they're not just going through the motions. And that's where, everyday drills are great. They're everyday drills for a reason, but you just got to be careful if you're going to do everyday drills, or in my case, where I do them pretty consistently, maybe not every day, that they don't get to a point where they're just going through the motions. So we really try to lock in on like the little details of stuff. That was our big emphasis today after having like Coach Drinkall gave us a lot of time off, coming off of our last game before we got into bowl prep. And so coming back, obviously, after a long layoff, and then you get the game plan and, you have new things swimming around in your head. Some of those things our first practice kind of weren't at the level where we expect them to be. So we just are really focused on the very little things, the first steps, where your eyes are, the very critical, fundamental day one install things, making sure that those are right. And then everything else is secondary to that.
I saw you speak at Lawrence First and Goal and in your clinic, which was defensive line focused, with what you were doing at Army, the importance of your guys working together. And obviously that's something that extends beyond the defensive line. You need every level of your defense working together. And this whole mentality of the pack, it's about hunting that execution together. When they start looking for individual success, what are the things that break down first?
Well, I think that goes back to do your job. You know, hunting individual success is fine as long as you do it within the framework of the defense. So as long as you're doing your job, your job and the techniques that we give you they're designed for you to have individual success. Where it breaks down is when you are going to try to do more than your job, that you think, well, we're not getting this done, so I got to do this over here. And then all of a sudden you're doing, something you shouldn't be doing. And the defense is kind of designed where there's 11 guys out there that have a job to do, and none of their jobs are overly complicated, but they all have to get done. And as soon as one of them doesn't get done, then it starts to break down on every level. So, that was a big focus, and where we've gotten a lot better throughout the season is just, just focusing on doing our job and not trying to do more than our job, because they've kind of learned that the individual success comes with the execution.
So this coordination of everybody working together, what things are you doing to make sure that it's becoming instinctive, right? That they're not overburdened maybe with thinking or too much scheme. How do you manage that? I mean, you need to have all the answers as a defensive coordinator, yet at the same time, the more you layer on them, the less instinctive it might become.
Like, we don't try to out scheme people. We do what we do. And I think that, there's wrinkles and things that we do that try to make the things appear more complicated or be more complicated for the offense than they are for us. Maybe it's a different alignment and doing the same job, or things like that. So we try to be multiple while staying simple for us. Like, be complicated for other people, but be simple for us, if that makes sense. Like, just another way, like maybe you have the same blitz, but you have it out of 3 different fronts. Well, to that guy, he knows in this blitz, I'm in the A gap. I might line up here, and this one, maybe line up here on this one or whatever. But ultimately, that's my job, and that's where I got to be. So then we give them tools, like a toolbox of techniques. So when you line up in this spot, you use this tool, maybe this technique. When you line up in this spot, you use this technique. So they have their toolboxes. I'm going one gap, I got to do this technique. Or I'm showing, maybe I'm a blitzer and I'm showing in this defense, but in this other defense, I'm not showing. I just use different disguises and techniques that we use, but ultimately we do pretty much the same thing pretty consistently.
Going back to the physicality part, and you've been a part of it at Army, obviously a very physical brand of football, both sides of the ball. You're seeing it, especially in camp every day in practice. You look at what Matt would like to do. Matt and I talked about one of his first texts being, I'm looking for fullbacks, right?
Yeah.
A different way of doing things. Maybe we're in that spread era a lot. How does facing that kind of physicality help you guys?
Oh, I mean, it's incredibly important. I mean, I think it's part of the whole team culture. It's just, it's what we do. It's our style of play. We go against Coach Chapin's offense every day. They're going to run gap scheme. They're going to get in big personnels. They're going to try to pound it. And you have to be able to, if you want to have success, you better have that in you. You better be a little bit mangy. You better be a little bit rough, and you better like that stuff, because it's not going away. That's just who we are. That's what we do. We're in camp prep and we're still doing inside drill. So, some places don't do that, but that's who we are. So that we don't hide from that. Like, this is a place that's for tough people, and people that aren't real tough, they would struggle with this. If they are tough, then this place feels like home.
You were tasked, when you began here with Matt, to build a defensive staff. For you, as you were looking at guys potentially for their fit, what were the things you felt, non-negotiable, that this is what I got to see in somebody who's a part of the staff?
One of the great things about our staff, and this was really important to me, that there's no egos in here. Like, everyone in here contributes, and they all have their area of expertise, and that they're like the lead coach on, and so they have ownership in the defense. It's not my defense, it's our defense, and everybody is involved with the game planning. You know, it's not me just saying this is what we're running, you know, like we all do it together and there's no egos. And, you know, when you work in college football, as you know, like, you know, you spend so much time, you spend more time with these guys than your family most places. So, you know, you get into a room with someone who's hard to get along with or whatever, that can be really difficult. And these guys are all like really easygoing dudes who are professionals that are really experts at their craft, and they have ideas and they contribute, and they just really have helped me in my first year coordinating. It's just been awesome to be around these guys.
How help? Across all three conversations, the same truth keeps surfacing. You cannot fake physicality. You cannot outsource toughness. And you cannot separate identity from daily behavior. Alignment isn't agreement, it's execution. And when identity is truly shared, it shows up everywhere, even when no one's watching. That's alignment in action. Next, in episode 4, the conversation continues, building on this foundation and exploring another layer of how alignment shows up inside the program. This series is presented by the Coaching Coordinator Network. For coaches looking to go deeper into leadership alignment and real conversations from inside the profession, explore Coaching Coordinator Network at coachandcoordinator.com, and be sure to look for our SMART clinics, which will be released soon.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.